Your F-150 has factory settings engineered right into the computer that are quietly grinding your engine components to dust and setting you up for a $5,000 teardown. Most owners have no idea that the features they rely on every single day to save a few pennies at the pump or follow the manufacturer's guidelines are the exact mechanisms destroying their trucks from the inside out. Ford built these trucks to survive the warranty period, not to cross the 200,000-mile mark with your bank account intact. Today, I am exposing 5 factory settings and features that are causing hidden damage and severe mechanical inefficiency without you ever knowing. Setting number 3 has caused the highest volume of premature timing chain failures I have ever seen in my bay. And setting number 1 is so deceptive that owners actually think it is beneficial to their engine when it is doing the exact opposite. Let's get into it. Setting number 5 is the Intelligent Oil Life Monitor. Ford programs this system to allow oil change intervals of up to 10,000 miles or 1 year under what they call normal driving conditions. The common behavior for most owners is to wait until that little light on the dashboard drops down to 5 or 10% before they even think about booking a service. You think you are following the rules and protecting your investment, but here is what Ford doesn't tell you. That monitor is a mathematical algorithm based on engine revolutions and operating temperatures. It does not have a chemical sensor in the oil pan testing for fuel dilution or viscosity shear. On the EcoBoost engines, specifically the 2.7 and 3.5, direct injection forces raw fuel past the piston rings during cold starts, thinning out your oil. By the time you hit 7,000 miles, your 5 to 30 weight oil has sheared down to a 20 weight or lower, completely starving your cam phasers and turbo bearings of critical hydraulic protection. I have pulled oil samples from trucks running these 10,000-mile intervals, and the iron and copper wear numbers are off the charts. The cumulative damage is completely invisible until the day you start your truck and hear a violent metal-on-metal rattle because your timing chain stretched by half an inch. The solution is simple. Ignore the dashboard completely. Change your oil every 5,000 miles or 6 months using a high-quality full synthetic and a factory filter, cutting Ford's recommended intervals strictly in half. Setting number 4 is one that Ford markets as a massive fuel economy benefit, but under everyday driving conditions. It is creating the exact environment that destroys your starting system and your engine's crankshaft thrust bearings, the factory auto start-stop feature. Every time you come to a complete stop at a red light, the computer shuts the engine off, then fires it back up the millisecond your foot leaves the brake. The manufacturer claims the heavy-duty starter and upgraded AGM battery are built to handle the cycle, but they are completely ignoring the laws of physics inside the crankcase. When your engine shuts down, oil pressure drops to 0 psi instantly. The oil film between your crankshaft journals and your main bearings begins to bleed off. Every single time that engine restarts, it experiences a brief moment of boundary lubrication, meaning metal is physically contacting metal before the oil pump can repressurize the oil galleries. A standard engine experiences about 50,000 start cycles in its lifetime. With auto start-stop enabled, that number skyrockets to over 500,000. I have personally inspected rod bearings on high-mileage 3.5 EcoBoosts that use this feature consistently, and the Babbitt material was worn straight down to the copper backing from copper-on-steel friction. You are cooking your engine bearings to save 3% on fuel. The fix costs nothing. Make it a non-negotiable habit to press the physical auto start-stop deactivation button on your dashboard every single time you start your truck, or disable it permanently through the vehicle's computer settings using a diagnostic tool. We just uncovered how factory oil intervals and start-stop cycles are wearing down your bearings. But the next 2 settings are even more insidious because they alter how your powertrain physically breathes and shifts. Moving up the countdown, these features are engineered to make your truck feel smoother and quieter in the showroom, completely masking the severe mechanical strain they place on your engine and transmission long after you drive off the lot. Setting number 3 is the skip-shift strategy programmed directly into the 10R80 10-speed automatic transmission. When you are driving under light throttle, the factory programming tells the transmission to skip gears entirely, shifting from first straight to third, and then from third to fifth. Ford did this to keep engine revolutions as low as possible for EPA fuel economy testing. And the common behavior for owners is to enjoy the seamless acceleration without realizing what is happening beneath the floorboards. When the transmission forces a shift from first to third gear at low speeds, it drops the engine directly into the bottom of its power band, causing a mechanical condition known as low-speed pre-ignition, or LSPI. The engine lugs at 1200 RPM under high load, causing cylinder pressures to spike violently. This extreme pressure places an immense shock load on the timing chains, causing them to stretch prematurely, while simultaneously hammering your connecting rod bearings. I have replaced dozens of stretched timing chains on both the EcoBoost and the Coyote platforms, and a massive percentage of those trucks spent their lives lugging in high gears due to this exact skip-shift programming. Furthermore, this constant skipping and slipping burns through the clutches inside the transmission, leading to the notorious harsh shifting and torque converter failures that plague these 10 speeds before they even cross 80,000 miles. The solution to save your transmission and your timing chains is to change how the computer manages its gears. You need to press the drive mode button on your shifter and select Talbot Hall mode or Sport mode every time you drive around town, which forces the transmission to use every single gear sequentially and keeps the engine in its optimal RPM range. Alternatively, you can use an aftermarket programmer to permanently disable the skip shift function in the computer. Setting number 2 is the ultra-low viscosity factory fluid specification paired with the thermal management system in the transmission. Ford specifies Mercon ULV fluid for the 10R80 transmission, which has a viscosity rating akin to water to reduce fluid drag and claw back a fraction of a mile per gallon. To match this thin fluid, the factory active warm-up system uses an engine coolant to transmission fluid heat exchanger designed to bring the transmission up to an operating temperature of 200 to 215 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as possible. Most owners see their transmission temperature gauge sitting steadily in the hot zone and assume everything is fine because the dashboard isn't flashing a warning light. But here is the harsh reality from inside the gearbox. Running a razor-thin fluid at over 200 degrees completely destroys its film strength. At those elevated temperatures, the fluid cannot maintain a proper boundary layer between the heavy-duty planetary gear sets and the internal bushings. The fluid oxidizes rapidly, losing its additive package and turning into a brown, gritty sludge that plugs the incredibly tight passages inside the main control valve body. Once that valve body gets clogged, line pressure drops, the clutches slip, and the transmission completely destroys itself from heat fatigue. I have personally torn down 10R80 units where the internal plastic components were melted and the clutches were bald, all because the truck was allowed to run at factory-regulated scorching temperatures on thin fluid. To stop this invisible destruction, you must intervene. First, drop your transmission fluid service interval from the absurd factory recommendation of 150,000 miles down to every 30,000 miles. Second, install an aftermarket thermal bypass valve kit, which replaces the restrictive factory thermostat and allows the transmission fluid to flow through the auxiliary cooler immediately, dropping your steady-state operating temperatures down to a safe, sustainable 170 degrees. Those transmission temperatures and shifting strategies are brutal enough, but they pale in comparison to the single most deceptive feature Ford built into these trucks. We have reached number 1 on the countdown, a setting so deeply misunderstood that millions of owners actively praise it while it quietly suffocates their engines and guarantees a catastrophic repair bill right as the odometer crosses into high-mileage territory. Setting number 1 is the factory programmed exhaust gas recirculation and variable cam timing strategy utilized to manage combustion temperatures, specifically how it operates during low-load highway cruising. Ford markets this calibration as an advanced emissions reduction and efficiency breakthrough, convincing you that your truck is running cleaner and more optimized than ever before. But let me tell you what is actually happening behind that plastic engine cover. To meet stringent federal emissions mandates without adding secondary hardware, the factory computer uses the variable cam phasers to intentionally overlap the intake and exhaust valves. This forces spent, inert exhaust gas back into the combustion chamber to lower peak flame temperatures. On the EcoBoost engines, this process behaves like an absolute pressure cooker for your intake tract. Because these early generations lacked port injectors to wash the valves with raw fuel, this constant baking of hot, oil vapor-laden exhaust gas directly over the backs of the freezing cold intake valves creates a sticky black tar. Over 50, 80, or 100,000 miles, that tar undergoes thermal hardening, baking into a rock-hard carbon crust that chokes the engine's breathing passages. This hidden mechanism creates severe air turbulence, leading to localized lean conditions, low-speed engine knock, and catastrophic microfissures in the spark plug porcelain. I have pulled cylinder heads off 3.5 EcoBoosts where the intake valves looked like they were caked in burnt asphalt, causing the valves to stick open at high RPM and physically smash into the pistons. On the 5.0 Coyote, this aggressive valve overlapping creates a massive pulse of negative pressure that sucks abrasive debris and oil vapor right back into the cylinders, scoring the polished cylinder walls and causing the high oil consumption patterns that Ford pretends are normal. You are sacrificing the physical volumetric efficiency and internal cleanliness of your engine to satisfy a laboratory computer simulation. The solution to stop this carbon choking requires a multi-step defensive approach. First, you must install a high-quality dual-valve oil catch kit in the PCV line to physically trap the oil vapors and moisture before the intake manifold can suck them back into the valves. Second, you must run a top-tier fuel system cleaner through your tank at every oil change, and for older direct injection-only trucks. Perform a dedicated intake valve foam treatment every 20,000 miles to chemically dissolve the deposits before they harden into engine-killing stone. Relying strictly on Ford's factory settings and standard maintenance schedules is a guaranteed way to ensure your F-150 becomes a financial liability long before its time. The commercial marketing materials tell you these trucks are built to handle absolute punishment without breaking a sweat. But the hidden mechanical reality inside my repair bay proves that the computer logic is actively working against the longevity of the metal hardware. Surviving past 200,000 miles isn't a matter of luck. It is a matter of active owner intervention. By cutting your oil change intervals directly in half, disabling the destructive auto start-stop cycle, overriding the lazy transmission skip-shift logic, cooling down your transmission fluid, and trapping the oil vapors, choking your intake tract, you take the longevity of your truck completely out of the manufacturer's hands and put it back into your own. You have the data. You have the exact mechanical blueprints of how these failures occur, and you have the simple behavioral solutions to stop them in their tracks. If you want to keep your hard-earned money in your bank account, instead of handing it over to a service advisor, hit that subscribe button right now, because I pull back the curtain on these factory engineering flaws every single week. Take control of your maintenance, ignore the dashboard monitors, and drive your truck